Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our weekly podcast with Jane C. Phillips. It's Conversations with Jane. Now a podcast that you can watch any place where you typically watch your favorite or listen to your favorite podcast. Good morning, Jane. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. You want to say a little bit about yourself?
I'm Pam Myers with Pam Myers Social Media. Thank you. But I don't want to make this about me because you've had so much good free publicity yesterday, this past month. You were mentioned. There was an article written about you on Vox, and it was called "This House Isn't Selling, Blame the Ghosts." I forget the writer's name, but it was very well written, and you can find it now on your social media channels and on your website. And you were talked about quite lengthily on the Attitudes podcast with Aaron Gibson and Brian Safi. So congratulations on all of that. That's great.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
So we're a few days away from Halloween. I usually, during this time of year, October is for my ghostbusting.org website. You can also find the article at ghostbusting.org. This is the time of year people tend to reach out because their editors or whoever want them to do something ghosty. And so much to my surprise, one of my clients has a podcast, and she did I found out later because several people called me as a result of hearing the podcast. And I was buried in the middle of it 9 minutes in to the Attitudes podcast on October 6th. But the host and co-host had experienced my work and were discussing it. And Attitudes I wasn't aware that my client had her own podcast. So it was nice that she brought it up, and it got some people interested in what I was doing. And I had about 5 people reach out to me to talk about what I do. That doesn't always mean that they want to do work with me, but I'm helping one person for sure, and maybe a couple of others as a result of that. But what prompted even more than that was I want to give credit to Jerusalem Demsas, who works for Vox.com. And she had an assignment of finding out about real estate and ghosts. And so I ended up getting interviewed by her. And it turns out I'm the only paranormal person she talked to. She talked to one of the real estate agents I work with. And we talked a lot about how I help people get their homes sold if there's an issue, or if it's not getting sold. Sometimes there's an energetic thing, and it's beyond ghosts. A lot of times I do some pretty complex clearings, but it was interesting because in the early days, I'm originally from Minnesota, and in the article, Minnesota is one of those states of 2 states, Massachusetts and Minnesota, that don't require the seller to indicate if there's any paranormal activity, and in fact will protect a seller if there's paranormal activity and they don't mention it. Mm-hmm. There are 4 states in this article that indicate that have laws that basically protect the buyer a little bit more, where the seller has to indicate if they're aware of paranormal activity, and if they cover it up, they could be liable. What was interesting, and New York was one of them, is somebody actually got his money back after he discovered there was paranormal activity on a property, and he went to court with it. Right. And he won. Although the judge was a little skeptical and sort of ruled in his favor, but felt he should have done more due diligence. Mm-hmm. So,
but it's not typical. You typically don't go looking to buy a house and go, hey, has this house ever been haunted, or are there any spirits attached? So that's where it comes into play of it being a good idea just to have a cleansing done, period. If you're a realtor selling a property, right? I mean,
Um, well, it's kind of it's a mixed thing. Um, I think it's a good idea to have things cleansed. For sure, if you buy a property after you've moved in, the same way you would want to have a cleaning crew come in or make sure that the house was really cleared of dirt before you moved in. Nobody would want that.
right.
And the piece that I recommend more along what you just offered was, rather than having, I think the realtor, we'll continue with that in a minute, but that if you're buying a house, if you're thinking about purchasing a house, I think it's really beneficial to inquire about the non-visible things.
Mhm.
In the article, they talk about, has a termite inspection been done? Do you do a regular inspection? But I think it's worthwhile to ask if there's been any paranormal activity, things like, were there any deaths on the property?
Right.
I'm working with a client. I've been hired. There was a pedophile in the property, and she's the second owner after that. And her kids still are not comfortable going down into the basement. So if you bring up the question as a normal question, are you aware of any odd activity or things that have happened here? Like, there was a death, there was a murder. The pedophile thing was like, wow. All of that will leave energy in the property that really could be off-putting. And if you really like the property as a buyer, then maybe that's something that would be smart to get a clearing done and then see the results of that, and to see how you feel about it. The same way when you have an inspection
Mhm.
on your property,
Right.
you have the right as a buyer to back out because of the inspection items that are discovered. It might be beneficial to do a paranormal inspection. Also, I tend to not just do inspections, I tend to do clearings.
Right. Mhm.
So that a house will be acceptable.
Yeah.
Um,
And to your point, I wish, because you cleansed our house, but it was after the fact when we were having so many issues. And so to your point, I wish that we had known you prior to, so we could have done a clearing prior to purchasing, or doing, when we were doing the whole inspection rigmarole
yeah,
going in. Who knows how much it would have saved, right?
and it's not, this is not a normal thing.
Right. Mhm.
They talk about in the article that what I'm doing is a cottage industry.
Mhm.
And it's even more than that. The whole paranormal world tends to be focused on, um, here's all the things that are going on in the space. There, I've proved something's there, and then they walk away. There are a number of people, shamans and others, that do clear property, but not that many that I've run into that focus on clearing property for real estate agents. I have a 30-year career prior to this in mortgage lending. So when I discovered that I was good at clearing properties locally here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, I thought, well, I have a marketing background because I was in sales for all that time. So I thought, okay, who am I going to approach? And the logical place was real estate for me, because what if somebody's house isn't selling and the seller is spending thousands of dollars a month to maintain a property they want to liquidate, and the real estate agent is spending money and time trying to get the property sold? And if there's a paranormal issue that I can contribute my clearing to, versus just giving you a list of, yep, you got, like the inspector, right? The inspector
Mhm.
comes in and says, here's all the problems, bye.
Right. Right.
And my job, I could be, if somebody hired me, to say, here's all the problems, which wouldn't cost as much, but I prefer to be, here's the issues I discovered and fixed for you.
Mhm.
Um, So if you're a real estate agent, you have a property that's distressed in some way and is still not selling, maybe it's worthwhile to spend the money. And it can be anywhere from $500 to over $1,000 with me, depending on the size of the property. So to give you an idea, it's not inexpensive, but if you're spending thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars a month to maintain a property, and this would be the missing piece, you can consider it. And I'm also, just so you know, if you're a real estate agent or you're selling the property, I'm not one of those that just says we're going to go in there and fix it and I'll let you know what I find. I will, on a phone call with you, kind of get a read of the property, because I have a lot of energies that work with me. We'll get a read on the property about how much you really need a cleansing. And if I don't think it's really the issue, because I can use my psychic abilities, I'm not going to recommend me. I have a bunch of ethics around that. But I think reading the article on Jerusalem, big kudos. I have about 8 or 6 articles that have been written about me, or where I'm part of, at my ghostbusting.org website. And this is the most thoroughly researched one I have seen in terms of what's going on, legal precedents, as a New York case, which is right in the beginning, where the guy was able to walk away from a house he'd purchased because there was paranormal activity. So I think in terms of, if you're a real estate agent or you know somebody who is, or you're going to sell your property, it would be worthwhile reading the article, because it gives you some thought processes. Like 10% of potential buyers will not purchase a house that they're feeling has paranormal activity in it.
Right.
And it could be even higher, and 45% of the population out there actually believes in ghosts and some of that. Right. So that's those are significant numbers. And if we're trying to sell a property and we're aware that there's some detriment, they're called distressed properties. And it's more than just that they need maintenance. But a distressed property can be a property that has had some awful things happen in it. And if there's leftover, maybe ghosts, maybe emotional energies, that when people walk into the property, they're just aware of it. And the work I do, while I say you'll get my absolute best efforts, I can't guarantee you'll get everything. For the most part, the houses that I clear are way more habitable, way more comfortable, way more homey than houses that have been left unattended that way.
Yeah. I have a question then, Jane. So what do you know how I'm sure we've all known like buildings that we're aware of that seem to be bad luck buildings. Nothing ever survives for any long period of time in them, right? So let's say I put a restaurant or a business into a building because I didn't believe in spiritual possessions, and I just thought, oh well, they made bad business decisions, right? But then all of a sudden my business is not doing well. Is that something that you think that you could help with?
Oh, that's pretty excellent. From the commercial side of things, that's an excellent question. When I'm dealing with commercial properties, and I don't necessarily focus on commercial owners, of restaurants and that sort of thing. But I will say, if there's a property, commercial or residential, that keeps changing hands, and the property's up on the market every 2 months, then you want to take a look at the energetics of it. It may not just be ghost things. It could be underlying energetics in the planet, or things coming down from up above, or the location outside. There's energies going through that affect you. But there's so many energetic factors that nobody thinks about. What if you bought a house from somebody and you're happily married and they were divorced and the house was sold in a divorce, and the previous people sold the house because of a divorce? So you get in there, you're happily married, and all of a sudden you're not getting along and you get divorced. There's a pattern there that it's really important to pay attention to.
Right.
I'd like to give some kudos to Raymond Grace, who is an amazing professional dowser Appalachian guy, who really is aware, and I was already aware of all of these things, and so he's helped me understand some other pieces of it. But you don't want to move into a property that's been trashed, either physically or emotionally, or has had a series of deaths, or people who have, there's been a lot of grief there, or somebody didn't die there, but they lingered there. All of that affects how you feel about the property. And because the work I do is really thorough, I mean, I'm not just, it's way, way, way beyond ghosts. Anybody who's worked with me will know that. And the other piece I do is, besides clearing the property, if there's a property out there that needs and wants my assistance, I'm also clearing the people. So I'm clearing them at the same time, because I don't want the property to be cleared and then the people there bringing in things. And I don't want to just clear the people if the property's kind of messed up, because then they can pick up things from the property. So I discovered the best way for me to be helpful and to get rid of variables is for me to do both. Yeah. And I would say that the majority of people out there that do what I do tend to do one or the other and not both. And so my goal is to be really thorough. And if you've got a property, a commercial property for sure, that nobody seems to be able to stay and be profitable in that site, it's for sure you want to make sure that the energetics are okay. So because I'm going to clear the property owners, the business owners, and if you've got some energies on you that you don't realize are there that are affecting your business decisions, or you have a ghost in the property that was an owner 50 years ago on that site with something else, and they have their opinion about how to do things, and it's coming into your head and you don't know it. Right. You're getting advice from that you think is your own idea, and it's not. And because of what I do, I'm usually aware if a thought's coming through that's not in alignment with how I think, and I will clear my energy field if I think that's it. So it's Halloween time. It's the other last little, or maybe another piece is, for those of you who love all the spooky stuff, it's really fun for you. You've got your house decked out. You love all the spooky movies. Just understand that it can invite in some of these darker energies to hang out. And one of the articles on my website, ghostbusting.org, is the one from the Santa Fe, New Mexican, that they followed me doing a clearing of a house of a friend of mine who decked out everything. And we had so much energy in there that I cleared. I mean, we even had things like the baby got locked in the back bedroom by something. Oh, wow. They had to break in through the window to get the baby out. I mean, they had those things, but the house was gorgeously decorated for Halloween, but it also brings in those energies. And so clearing your space after Halloween, if that's what your fun part is, and just being aware that some of the things that we do, we can bring in some of these energies. Right. But
Right.
I'm thrilled about the attitudes on
Podcast
October
mentioned?
6th.
Yeah.
Yep. And the part about me and is from about 9 minutes to maybe 20, something like that.
Mhm.
And it's interesting. It's not the way I would talk about my work, but that's okay. It's nice to have other people's view on things.
Right.
And the article on House Isn't Selling, Blame the Ghosts at Vox.com by Jerusalem is very well written and worth a read. Whether it draws you to want to contact me or reach out, that's totally up to you. But I'm going to be sending that article out to the real estate agents that I have on my list and letting them know that it might be worth a read.
And it is long, but it is posted on your Facebook page. So if anybody wants to read it, it is there. So
Yep. And it's also, so it's on my Facebook page. It's did you do Instagram too?
It's not on the Instagram page
Because I don't think we can, maybe.
Yeah, it would have been just the image and then.
Yep. And it's also, if you go to the website that's listed under my picture here, janecphillips.com, the logo, the geyser logo that's kind of purplish, is the link to my ghost busting site also. But janecphillips.com is a landing page that gets you to both the medical intuitive and energy work I do there, as well as the ghost busting.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
It is scheduled to go out on your Instagram feed, but the you do have to, people have to know to click on to read the article. So
Yep, it's tricky. Instagram's a little tricky because they're picture site. But anyway, so
thank you everybody for joining us today. If you are really super into Halloween and you need to have your house cleansed, or you're looking to buy or sell, then reach out to Jane at janecphillips.com and she can help. So thank you so much, Jane. I'm Pam Myers. If you want podcasting to add to your marketing repertoire for your business, just give me a shout out. Thanks so much for joining us.